Good morning. Happy Wednesday. I hope your day is off to a good start. Mine is so far. My outdoor office, sort of a chilly, gray, ugly morning, but it's still good with a second cup of coffee and a new mug. Got this for Christmas. You can see Montreat Conference Center, Montreat, just a beautiful little town up there just above Black Mountain. So for a couple minutes now, I want to reflect on a gospel passage. Over the last several weeks, I've been preaching from the lectionary gospel passages for each Sunday. And this coming Sunday, I decided to switch up at the last minute and do Old Testament, but I thought that there's still something I wanted to say about the gospel lesson, and it's from Mark 1, 29 to 39. And so I give you the backdrop on this. At the beginning of Jesus' ministry, he goes back to Galilee, and in particular the little town of Capernaum, which will sort of be his home base for a lot of his ministry. And he goes into the synagogue on the Sabbath and casts out an evil spirit. And then after the synagogue service, he goes back to Peter's mother-in-law's house. And that is the backdrop for our passage. And immediately he left the synagogue and entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Now Simon's mother-in-law lay ill with a fever, and immediately they told him about her. And he came and took her by the hand and lifted her up, and the fever left her, and she began to serve them. That evening at sundown they brought to him all who were sick or oppressed by demons, and the whole city was gathered together at the door. And he healed many who were sick with various diseases, and cast out many demons, and he would not permit the demons to speak, because they knew him. And rising very early in the morning, while it was still dark, he departed, and went out to a desolate place, and there he prayed. And Simon and those who were with him searched for him, and they found him, and said to him, "Everyone is looking for you." And he said to them, "Let us go on to the next towns, that I may preach there also, for that is why I came out." And he went throughout all Galilee, preaching in their synagogues and casting out demons. And that's, like I said, the lectionary gospel reading for this upcoming Sunday. It is what you might call a one of those cases of like summary healings. The only healing that we're given any detail on is Peter's mother-in-law, and then it just refers to him healing many others, casting out many demons. And this is in Capernaum, and 4 years ago I was there in Israel, and when you go to Capernaum, you can go right to the spot. When you go to Capernaum, you can look over to your left, and there's the site where the synagogue was. Currently, there are the ruins of a 4th century synagogue that was built on the top of the synagogue that would have been there in the 1st century. Directly in front of you, it would be the ruins of the synagogue ruler's house. And then over to the right is where Peter's house was. And it's interesting that the Roman Catholic Church has a chapel built right over the top of those ruins, and the way the chapel is constructed, there's space, there's open air between the bottom of the chapel and the archaeological site where Peter's house had been. So Jesus is in Capernaum. leaves the synagogue, goes just a few matter of 100 yards, 200 yards down to Peter's house, and we are told that she is in the bed with a fever. And I really just, for these few minutes, want to dial in on what happens with Peter's mother-in-law. Told that Jesus takes her by the hand, and she gets up. The fever leaves her. And that she begins to serve them. It is easy. It is easy for us to come at it this way. And I suspect we've all been there. You've had the flu or a sinus infection or COVID or whatever, and you're good. You feel good enough to get up out of bed, but you're not really well yet. You feel good enough to get up out of bed, you're not really well yet, and you look around and there's all this stuff that's got to be done, and you get sort of ill and cranky. We've all been there. And so it's easy to take that and move that back to the situation. And why in the world does she have to get up and do all this stuff? Let's look at it with fresh up eyes. To begin with, when Jesus heals her, she's not halfway healed. She's not halfway healed where she gets up out of bed and she's is up, but she's not good. When he heals her, she's good. And the next thing is this. We need to think culturally here. In that culture, hospitality was everything. Hospitality was everything. And here you have Jesus, who is a close friend of her boys. Jesus, who is a close friend of her son-in-law Peter, and it is ingrained that you're going to show hospitality. And I'm certain it would have been, it would have driven her nuts to have not been able to be up providing hospitality. Hospitality was everything in that culture. If somebody came, you set a meal for them. It's just the way it worked. And we don't have that same cultural mindset now. For better or for worse, we just don't. And again, this is a cultural thing. The eldest female in a household, sort of the matron, if you will. I mean, she's the one that's going to make certain that everything's right. And so Jesus heals her. And what takes place is that he restores her back to her place. So it's not just a physical healing that takes place. It is a physical healing, but it's one that restores her back to her place in society. We could look at it in that regard, similarly to the healing of lepers. When Jesus heals a leper, there is a physical healing that takes place. The leper is ill and then is well. That's awesome. That person no longer has this contagious skin ailment. But what else happens when Jesus heals a leper? When the leper is healed, that person gets restored back to society. When the leper is healed, that person is restored back to society, because lepers were, because their condition was contagious and was, everybody in the world can see it, they were cut off from society. And in fact, it's said Jesus, when he heals a leper, the actual term is used as cleansed. So when he cleanses a leper, that person isn't just physically healed, but there is a societal restoration as well. So perhaps we can look at this healing of Peter's mother-in-law the same way. She is physically healed, but because she is well, she can resume her place in society. And so we can think about in societally or in your family, what roles are yours? And imagine not being able to do them. And then somebody comes along and you are healed, and it is a miraculous healing. It's not just a case that antibiotic worked, but it's a miraculous healing, and your reactions, you're going to get up and you're going to serve, and serve out of gratitude, not out of drudgery. Oh, I've got to get up and do the pot roast. No. You're going to get up and you're going to serve out of gratitude, because you have been healed, you've been made well, and you add that to the cultural bit about hospitality. You have guests in your house, and it is ingrained in you to be hospitable and to provide a meal. So Jesus heals her. He takes her by the hand, raises her up. The fever leaves her immediately, and she is well, and she begins to serve. And really, I think this is a beautiful thing. And let's apply that to all of us. Let's apply that to all of us. All of us who are believers have been healed by Jesus in one way or another. We have all been healed by Jesus in one way or another. Some of us have been healed physically from illness or in recovery from injury. But if we follow Jesus, we have all been healed spiritually. We have all been healed. And what better way to respond to being healed by Jesus than to serve Jesus? So I think that we need to look at these first few verses of this passage, like Mark 29, 30, 31, 32, in that range. Look at them and say, wow, that's beautiful. That describes all of us. All of us who follow Christ have been healed by him. And what better way to respond out of gratitude and love than to serve him? So, with that, as food for thought, I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday.